Kansas the best track on the NASCAR schedule? We'll talk about our race rating later, but my God, this was a fantastic race. We had an epic battle between Larson and Hamlin for the win and getting the 400th win for Joe Gibbs Racing. Denny Hamlin finally breaks a winless streak since last year's Coke 600, captures the win this weekend at Kansas. He also becomes the winningest active driver at the track. There was a three-way tie between him, Harvick, and Logano. Now he is the sole best winner at Kansas Speedway that is an active driver. Now we have to talk about this finish though between Larson and Hamlin because it is kind of controversial. I know everyone's going to say, well, did Hamlin just junk Larson? Did Larson get loose? Here's what I saw from my perspective and what we saw on the screen. Hamlin said he tried to side draft him. He was a little bit too aggressive and it clipped Larson. But also we have to remember Larson's car was not handling the best. He was pretty loose. He was squirrely. He actually, and I think, clipped some of the wall before Hamlin spun him out. So I think it was an issue of Larson's car wasn't handling well. Denny Hamlin was trying to be really aggressive. So I think it was truly a racing incident. I know Hamlin might junk somebody to get a win. I know Larson might junk somebody to get a win. But I also know that those two drivers respect each other a lot. I know Denny Hamlin was like, yeah, if I was on the receiving side of that, I would have been pissed off. But I do see it more as a racing incident, not an intentional wreck. I don't know what you guys think, though, but based on what I saw on the screen, the driver comments, it did not seem like it was intentional or an ill will. As for the rest of your top 10, in the third position, William Byron, he struggled early in the race. He captured the pole, but just faded. And then over the course of the final stage, he got himself back into contention. Not really to win. I wouldn't say he was the winning car today, but having a third place after what they went through on Sunday, very impressive. So William Byron in the third position. Then we have Bubba Wallace. A lot of us had Bubba Wallace as the favorite to win the race, just wasn't able to get that track position to be able to lead and then win. Fifth place is Ross Chastain, and don't you worry, guys, we're going to talk a little bit more about Ross Chastain in a few minutes. Sixth place, we have Joey Logano. Seventh, Chase Elliott. Eighth, Martin Truex Jr., who actually I thought was going to win the race at one point or another. Ninth, Tyler Reddick. And 10th, Austin Dillon. A very nice top 10 for Austin Dillon. All right, it's time to bring it up. What did Brennan Poole say after last week's race? Somebody's got to basically kick Ross Chastain in the rear end, and that's kind of what happened after the race. I wasn't expecting the drama. I don't know if you all were expecting the fight that broke out between Chastain and Noah Gragson. How did this happen, though? Well, in the third stage, Chastain seemed to run Gragson up the track a little bit, crowded him. Gragson did not like that, ran him back down the track, in my opinion, trying to retaliate a little bit and doored him. Then with about 62 laps to go, there was a caution for Noah Gragson as he spun out with a flat tire, ruined a pretty solid day he was putting together. And then after the race, Noah approached Ross. Noah grabbed Ross's collar. Ross was like, hey man, stop that, don't do that. And then Ross threw the first punch. And I think we can all agree on this, and maybe not. I do not condone violence, but if one guy has the chance to swing, the other guy should have a chance to swing back. Somebody broke up the fight beforehand, before Noah even got the chance. That's fine. But also props to NASCAR because you could literally hear Ross's fist making contact with Noah's face. Like, oh my God, like getting that close to the action. And then also hearing what they had to say was also very interesting as well. The comments after this all happened, Noah Gragson was like, hey, I'm really sick and tired of this when guys like Chase Elliott and others in the garage are telling you to, quote, beat his ass. Words, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna say the quote. And he's like, everyone's sick and tired of it, and nobody's had the courage I'm going to use to actually walk the walk. Everyone's talking the talk, nobody's walking the walk, so Noah Gragson decided, you know what, I guess now's my chance. Did he win at the end of the day? No, he's the one that got punched, but he did make a point that no other driver is acting on this frustration. Also, I don't know if you saw this, but after the race, when Denny Hamlin was in victory lane, Ross Chastain went to congratulate him, which I thought was pretty cool. So maybe that the hatchet's buried there. Again, I would love to see Ross Chastain on an episode of Actions Detrimental with Denny Hamlin. If you haven't listened to that podcast, I would assume that this week's going to be a good one, especially because Denny won, the Ross fight, great times. And then after that, Ross Chastain is like, I'm not going to comment much on it, but he's like, we have a no-push policy here at Trackhouse Racing. I'm like, bro, you swung the first punch. So maybe you don't have a push policy, but you have a punch policy. I don't know, but I will say, As frustrating as I think Ross Chastain could potentially be to fans, I will say he is good for the sport, and here is why. We don't have a lot of drivers that are able to take themselves out of the sport in the means of like getting in the mainstream media, getting in the mainstream headline. Ross Chastain with that video game move last year made national attention. News stations, it's all over social media. It's getting millions of views. We don't have drivers that do that anymore. Should it be because of actions on the track that could be detrimental? See what I did there? No, probably not. But it's a storyline. It gives people in the media something to talk about. It gives fans something to talk about. It gives fans a villain. I know Kyle Busch is kind of the villain in the Cup Series, but I feel like that title shifted to Ross. I just think Ross needs to own the title of villain and embrace it. I don't know if you saw him kind of smiling a little bit as, he was getting separated from Noah Gragson. I was like, that's your villain era. Embrace it. I don't know if that's because he doesn't want to be categorized by that, and that's fine, but I will say the more Ross Chastain truly embraces that side of him, because I think the drivers have made it known that they're not fans of him, they don't like how he races, I think the more Ross Chastain could be more of a fan favorite than he already is. And maybe saying fan favorite is like way too broad. I understand that, because I know some of you are like, fan favorite, bro, I don't like him. And that's fine. It's all opinion based. But I do think having somebody that's able to get consistent storylines out, drama, whether it's good or not, is good for the sport. It keeps people talking. It keeps NASCAR relevant. That's what happened during the race. Now, after the race, something I wanted to mention is that there are no cars going to the R&D center, but there are a few cars that are going to be tested in the wind tunnel. Chastain, Austin Dillon, Harvick, Logano, and Truex, their cars will be taken to the wind tunnel to test. If you remember, before the season started, some of the manufacturers had the chance to change some things on the nose to make their cars more aerodynamically competitive, to keep the parity alive. We saw that Chevy kind of had a big advantage over Ford and Toyota. And after this race, I hope that when we test, we're able to see if those changes that they made during the offseason were effective or not. I know that Ford is still struggling on the 1.5 miles, so maybe this will show something with that, and maybe they're able to make adjustments. So something to keep in mind. But the points post-Kansas, now we have 9 different winners this season. That's crazy. And also, we are a third of the way through the season. I'm pretty sure if I did the math right. If I did not, I am sorry. But that's also crazy, too. It feels like we were just at Daytona yesterday. But with the point standings now, Kyle Larson sits on top of the playoff grid. Denny Hamlin, with his wins, sits 6th in that playoff grid with his playoff points. But the overall points leader is Ross Chastain. He just does not have a win yet. The driver I want to draw your attention to is Bubba Wallace. After Talladega, he was 49 points below that cutoff line. 2 races later, and I forget who pointed this out on Twitter, so thank you for this stat because I thought this was amazing. But after this race, he is now 6 points below that cutoff line, had a fighting chance to get above, get into the round of 16. Because if you really think about it, we're in May, right? So May, June, July, August. That's 4 months, and those are going to fly by before the playoffs truly start. So yeah, 4 months to get yourself above that cutoff line, and I think Bubba Wallace is picking up speed at the right time. So very good for that team. As for the race rating, I'm excited about this one, you guys, because I feel like this was a race. I saw a lot of comments about this on social media too, but even I was talking about it to my parents as well. This race revived me as a fan, and I will say Kansas has swung it out of the park the past 2 races that we had in 2022 and this race, and I will tell you, if I can get a ticket to the race in the fall for Kansas, I will. I will grab a ticket as soon as I can, because this is the best racing that I have seen at a track consistently in a long time. And I was at the Coke 600 last year, and that was like the freaking best race I'd ever been to, I'd ever seen in my life, and this is up there with that race. There was great passing, and if the leader got ahead, the guy behind him was able to catch up. Again, with that final battle at the end, it was kind of a yo-yo effect between Larson and Hamlin, but it was good because if they made a pass, they could make it stick for a bit. Not to mention, there were a record number of lead changes, and this is NASCAR history. The most number of lead changes at a 400-mile race at a 1.5-mile track, and 37 lead changes for this race, if I counted correctly. That is insane. There were also major blocks that were made. I'm thinking of Chase Elliott in stage 3 trying to get position. I think Bubba Wallace made some crazy blocks. I know the fight for the lead between Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson, there were major blocks made there too. It was just incredible. What a classic race at Kansas. And I know what you're thinking. You're saying, like, Taylor, you're talking this race up. You're going to give it a 100%. Last year's race, I gave a 92%, and I feel like this race was pretty on par with that. I feel like a 100% race, it's kind of like a teacher, and you're really frustrated. You're like, my paper was perfect, but they gave it a 98. What gives? And they're like, yeah, 100% aren't really achievable, so I'm going to give it a 98. I fall into that category, so I'm very sorry. But this race was on par with what we saw last spring, a little bit better, though. I'm going to give this race, I might change this later to give it a higher rating, but I'm giving this race a 94%. Fantastic. This is the highest rated race of the season. Honestly, I've also seen comments too where people are like, Kansas should be the championship track. I don't know. That's a stretch for me, but I feel like it produced much better racing than what we're getting at Phoenix for the final race. Nope, there's like barely any passing that we saw there last year. And obviously too, if you have the best car in the best track position as we saw, you run away with the title. This track really does not allow for that situation to happen. That's why I think this would be a great championship track. But I also know we still have Homestead. And I love Homestead, so maybe we go back to there. But I also know that Phoenix has always been sold out. They have a great crowd there. They're locked into more races for the championship there. So this is something to consider. I don't really know, but Kansas for me is quickly becoming my favorite track. And because the short track package that we've had still isn't solid, I think Kansas might be my favorite track of all time at this point. So kudos to just the product that we have there, NASCAR, Kansas Speedway, the drivers. It was a phenomenal weekend of racing. And also to bring this up too, the schedule that we have going forward, we have Darlington next week, a fantastic track, historic track. We're going to see the throwback schemes. Then we have North Wilkesboro, and then we have Charlotte. It's going to be a fantastic 3 weeks of racing in the month of May. I mean, heck, the month of May, it's a big day. It's a big, month for racing, I should say. Memorial Day, we have Monaco. We also have the Indy 500. We have the 600. It is a big day of racing, and this month is going to be spectacular. I am very excited. So a 94%, was that too high? Was it not? Also, the question to you, what I'm going to ask is, should Kansas potentially be a championship track? I don't know. What also did you think of the Ross Chastain and Noah Gragson beef? Was the Denny Hamlin wreck intentional? Was it not at the end, fighting with Kyle Larson for that win? Let me know in the comments below. But that is it for this episode of Above the Yellow Line. To look for more content from me and the ATYL crew, make sure to follow our social media pages linked in the bio. And for more minute-on-the-minute updates for all your favorite motorsports series, make sure to go to TobyChristie.com. Great articles, great interviews, great times. I just spoke about Darlington a few seconds ago. So Darlington, we're going to be doing a live stream tier ranking list, looking at all the Darlington throwbacks that we have this year for the Cup Series. We would dabble a little bit into looking at Xfinity and Truck, picking out our favorites there. So we'll look at all the throwback skis and we'll rank them. So make sure to join us live Thursday night at 7 p.m. If we change the time, make sure to check out my social media pages to get updated, but also click the notification bell on this channel. If you're watching YouTube, you'll get updated when we do go live, so you can join us right there, be part of the tier ranking list with the rest of the ATYL crew. So that is it. Make sure you check into the live stream on Thursday. So thank you all for the support, and until next time, I'll see ya.